Our next and final speaker, she is the CEO and what I'll call the chief nerd of a company called Knock Knock. If you've been in any sort of store, I guarantee you've seen her products, but you didn't know she was the person behind them. And I'm going to let her explain that because it's awesome. She's the wonderful, if you hold a notebook right now, it's from her. She came all the way from California, Venice actually. Left coast, best coast. To be here tonight, to speak to you. And tonight she's going to talk about her products, which involve a shitload of comedy. She's going to tell you how they put comedy into things that you buy or want to buy. So please, everyone, give it up for Jen Bilik.
So hey! So I am the owner and founder of a company called Knock Knock, and we make funny shit. And then we sell it. And part of the reason why our shit is funny is because we know how to use and abuse comic tension. So before I go into that, I'm going to digress. So I'm a big fan of the conceptual Halloween costume. I've always held in contempt like the sexy nurse, the sexy witch, the sexy space alien. Because my feeling is if you're not going to be sexy the other 364 days of the year, why are you going to do it on Halloween, right? So this here is, you may recognize the shark. And I sewed it in high school while I was convalescing from a water polo concussion. I blocked a ball. I was the goalie. I blocked a ball with my head. So then later on, I was a cloud. But people confused me with Zeus, which did not disappoint me at all. And then I was a flower, which broke my sexy rule because the top kept falling down. And then more recently, I have been Roy G. Biv and Wendy Davis. And I'm really excited, being from Los Angeles, that I may be in a room where people have heard of Wendy Davis. Am I right? I had the catheter, I had the pink running shoes. And so I go to the same Halloween party every year because that's just the kind of loyalist I am. So I show up as Wendy Davis, and a really good friend of mine comes up to me and he says, with what I think is great admiration and respect, all your Halloween costumes require explanatory placards. And he was right. If you don't have to typeset your Halloween costume, you're doing something wrong. So for years and years, I had this idea that more sensible friends talked me out of, that I wanted to be irony. And one of the definitions of irony is the gap between words and meaning. And so, it was a pretty easy execution costume because it was a sandwich board. And so I would have words on the front and I would have meaning on the back. So the fatter I was, the bigger the gap would be between words and meaning. And that's actually relevant because the bigger the gap between words and meaning, the more the ironic or comic effect. Now I'm talking about tension tonight, comic tension, and I'm not talking about the kind of tension you guys all felt today at work, and I'm not talking about the kind of tension you guys feel when you're watching like a scary movie. However, there is a really interesting analog that Alfred Hitchcock coined about the difference between surprise and suspense. Has anybody ever heard this particular, formulation? Any Republicans in the room? No, okay. So, I have no idea what party affiliation Alfred Hitchcock had, but his definition of surprise was, as a director, if you stage a scenario where you have two characters and a table, and you put a bomb under the table, and you tell neither the audience nor the characters that there's a bomb on the table, under the table, and the bomb goes off, that's surprise, right? But if you put the bomb under the table and you tell the audience that there's the bomb, like they can see it, and the characters don't know, that is suspense. And that points to this structural tension that I'm talking about, because the suspense comes from the difference between the audience's knowledge and the character's knowledge, and that is some deep shit. So now, creative tension is the larger umbrella under which comic tension falls. And I think now it's time to go into the etymology of tension. Wouldn't you? Are you guys wondering where it comes from? Yeah! Whoa, yeah. Yeah, so...
What is the etymology of tension?
Lauren, The etymology of tension is from the Latin tendere, which means to stretch. It also means tender, like tender contender, like Lauren. And when you're talking about conceptual tension versus, say, muscular tension, you're really talking about some pretty substantial differences that in psychology we like to call cognitive dissonance. So cognitive dissonance, some of you may be experiencing right now, is the experience of holding two opposing ideas or beliefs in your head at the same time without resolution, okay? No presentation is complete without a flow chart. And I know all of you were wondering tonight when you came out whether it would be appropriate for you to wear a bindi. And the answer is no, except for maybe Kasha, who had the Am I Hindu book, because if she was Hindu, it would have been okay. And the humor in this flowchart comes from the cognitive dissonance between the fashion-motivated bindi and the Hindu-motivated bindi. And I think this makes it all pretty clear. So, tension, the alleviation of tension is proportionate to the amount of tension. The release is proportionate to the amount of tension there was. So that's the same in comic tension, like you really string it out, then the punchline is going to be funnier. Same with sexual tension. Some of you may be feeling that right now. I'm not going to call anybody out. But the greater the tension, the better the release. Hence the picture of the bottle of champagne, right? Pop. Pop goes the weasel. So James Taylor knows this, even though he seems not terribly sexual. He knows it. And Bruce Springsteen actually said, and I quote, "What lights my fire," and that's just the quote part, "is the tension between optimism and Pepto-Bismol." Right? Because you get a little upset stomach and you want that pink, show me the pink. Optimism and pessimism. And then I hear some of you are kind of into science. Carl Sagan said that all great innovation comes from the tension between creativity and skepticism. And I'm both creative and skeptical, so a lot of great innovation comes from me. When I see a great piece of art, usually, it derives from all of these tensions that we're talking about. So if you see something that is like totally symmetrical and harmonious and like assonant, it's probably going to be boring and unimportant. But if you see something that is disconnected and jarring and dissonant, it's just going to be unpleasant, right? And so the balance comes from the interplay between the two. And when I see a great piece of art that has all of its tensions in the right place, here's what I feel. Kerchunk. Okay? Like, it's like, yeah. It's a pelvic thing that happens. It's a kerchunk. And I have to say, it feels really good. It's usually private, but tonight it's public. And it's just the yin and the yang. And some of you may have heard already about yin and yang. It's a balance of the opposites. It's the interplay between the two. And some of you have already enacted that in your outfits. I can see a lot of interplay. So this is one of my favorite paintings. It's Christina's World by Andrew Wyeth. And what I want to point out here, analogously, is the importance of compositional tension. So what you'll see in the lower left-hand corner is Christina, right? She's bigger. I think actually she's a paraplegic, and that's not relevant, but I just want to point it out. She's at the bottom of the hill, and she's bigger than the house because of perspective. She's at the lower left, and then you have the house at the upper right, and you basically have this kind of diagonal tension between the two, which is similar to what you have like in buildings with cables and stuff, which is not artistic at all. But basically, the counterbalancing of the visual weight is what creates the kerchunk, right? And if they were totally symmetrical, you would have no kerchunk. One of the things we think about a lot at Knock Knock in our product is surprise versus familiarity, right? So if something is too surprising, people don't get it. One of the things we call that is avant-garde. And if it's too familiar, it's boring. So you want the balance between the two. So here we have a product from Knock Knock that was, I'm gonna give away the punchline, it was too surprising. So it was a kit that included, basically it was a kit for a party for two, just add a bottle of wine. So you've got a banner, a wine label, a greeting card, and coasters. And that would have been great, except for that we got a little too clever with ourselves, and we called it fete à tete. Does anybody have French here? A little circumflex on both words. And then we put some abstract drawings on the cover, and nobody knew what the fuck it was, okay? And I'm gonna loop a little back with what the fuck later, because I'm just gonna give you the answer now. What the fuck sells? So this is one of my favorite concepts. A number of people this quote has been attributed to, and it was initially about novels. A good ending should be surprising yet inevitable. And if you think about it like a mystery novel, and you get to the end, and they do the whodunit, right? And it's the butler, and you want to be surprised, like, oh my God, it was the butler. I had no idea. But then you want to go back through it, and you want to be like, oh, yeah, that's right, okay, there, and there. Yes, oh God, I totally missed it. They laid the crumbs, right? So it's surprising, but then it's inevitable. Whereas the author could just bring somebody in on page 300 and be like, this character that didn't appear anywhere did it, and you're surprised, but the inevitability factor is completely not there. So now I'd like to actually get to the title of my talk, Part 3, Comic Tension, which I like to call Comatention, hashtag Comatention. I'm sure most of you, like me, are in love with the word synergy and use it at the office a lot. In fact, I'm seeing a lot of synergy here in the crowd. I think, actually, especially with Ryan there. Ryan is very synergistic, whereas Eric, not so much. But the definition of synergy is when the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And with comic tension, what happens is you get these two opposing forces, right? And together they create a level of meaning that is entirely different from the two elements themselves. This relates to the nature of paradox, and paradox has a nature. Definition of paradox is an unsound argument leading from, I've totally forgotten what the definition of paradox is, but basically it's contradictory shit, right? Okay, so I'm gonna go through very quickly 5 definitions of comic tension. Normalcy versus absurdity, which we also refer to as social observational humor, which is looking at the way that we live now, which is usually pretty fucked up. So how many of you have written thank you cards in the past? Okay, we got some polite motherfuckers in this, but that guy has never written a thank you card. Yep, you have? Okay, your grandmother is very happy right now. So the thank you card, like especially if it's like a batch thing, like a bar mitzvah or a bris, you're writing a thank you card over and over and over again. And the charade is that each thank you card is different and individual, but in truth, you're writing the same thing. So, multiple choice correspondence thank you card. The humor derives from the tension between what we expect and what it really is, between the truth and the hypocrisy, right? Okay, so next we have visuals versus content, and our slang flashcards are what illustrates this. So we have slang, which is very street, right? You guys are all of the street, of or pertaining to the street, because there are no Republicans here. And you have this informal, very street-based concept colliding with this conventional pedagogical format of the flashcards, right? And then we picked the whitest people you could find in these royalty copyright-free images from the 60s and the 70s. Like, these people would not know a crunk if they stepped in it, okay? And then our therapy flashcards, we used repressed Victorian people for New Age concepts. And then finally, we used photography from the 20s to the 50s because I think, as you all know, nobody before 1970 had sex. That's a fact. That's actually, even though I was born in 1969, no sex. So then we have detail versus what? No sex. Okay, yeah. What was that? It's basically, it's sex talk. It's like, I want to fuck you up. I mean, fuck you. Yeah, sorry. This is why I have no sex. So, detail versus hyperbole is number 3. And you take something that basically you think could run the gamut from A to B, and you run it from A to triple Z, which is my bra size. And what makes it funny is the concept itself, but then you just you blow it out with some fine-ass print. And the things you must do to make me happy could include switch the laundry and coddle my insecurities, right? Okay, how to find true love. Looks pretty simple. Looks like you're gonna find the answers from this poster, but actually it is a tangle of spaghetti fucking mess, right? Yeah. With some unspecified personal growth I have yet to achieve right there in the middle. Finally, well actually second to last, penultimate, if you guys all know how to use penultimate correctly, we have funny concept versus dry delivery. So what that is something that at Knock Knock we call humorous nonfiction, as seen in The Complete Manual of Things That Might Kill You, A Guide to Self-Diagnosis for Hypochondriacs. It is about 300 ailments organized by symptom, right, so that you can diagnose yourself, and ranked by things like lethality and pain and suffering. It's the concept that's funny, but the execution is completely straight. Physicians cannot find fault with this book. When it comes to being a funny concept executed completely straight, I'm going to give you a few rules. Do not gild the lily. If the lily needs gilding, your lily is not pretty. Do not because if you need to announce the funny, your funny is not funny. Finally, do not wink. Same with the badumsh. If you need to announce your funny with a wink, it is not funny. What you want is to be Stephen Colbert. Okay? That's what all of us are going for. And the great thing is when Stephen Colbert plays Stephen Colbert, he does it completely straight, and that's why he's so brilliant. Hashtag nonwink. Finally, we've got funny substance versus funny haha. At Knock Knock, we fancy ourselves to be pretty intelligent and deep, but sometimes things miss their mark, like our deep boxes, right? They weren't actually as boxes, they weren't very deep, it was the concepts that were deep. And I have no idea why they didn't sell. I don't know if you guys have any suggestions for that. There's a mirror on the inside and a brain on the outside. But you know what? WTF is not beneath us. We put WTF on anything and we sell the shit out of it. WTF on toilet paper, WTF on candy bars, WTF on wine bottles, WTF on pads, and we sell the shit. And I know some of you may have tried to sell your own crap and it hasn't worked, but the great thing about Knock Knock is our crap sells. We put crap on everything and away it goes. So I feel like I've done a pretty good job of outlining what comic tension is for you. And I could have described suspension bridge tension, or I don't know what this is, but it looks like that square is about to slide off that triangle and the clock is not set to the right time. This is Greek, I think, or math, or something like that. This is a slinky. Slinkies involve a lot of, especially if there's carpet on the staircase. And then I'm from California, so when those tectonic plates slide, we shake. And then finally, I really wanted to do the presentation on the tension of curtain rods, but Eric vetoed it because he's an asshole. I don't know about you, but when I was little, I wanted to grow up and have a tension pneumothorax. And then finally, all of you guys in this room who are looking for a mate aspire to marital tension, which leads to family tension, which is where I got my sense of humor. And then there's what everybody here, yep, look to your right, look to your left, I know you want to fuck her. And then when she goes home and gets in the cab without you, you're going to have a tension headache. But we have a cure for that, and that's comic tension. So take 2, do not call me in the morning, and thank you so very much.